Hi, and welcome to my session in this Global Day of Learning, which is on the importance of earned media for your brand. I am Annie Pace Scranton, and I run a public relations firm called Pace Public Relations. We're located in New York City in Midtown Manhattan, but we have offices in DC, California, and we have international reach as well. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll get into the session. So I started my career as a TV news producer. I worked for almost a decade at major TV news stations like CNN and CNBC and Fox News Channel. I worked for morning shows like Good Morning America and The Today Show, and my role there was always as a booker. So a booker, otherwise known as an editorial producer, is somebody who finds the best guests and the best stories, the most compelling stories that we believe the viewers of the show will want to hear about. And then our main job is to find the best experts who can come on and break down that news of the day in a relatable way for the people at home. So I did that for about 10 years, and then I had kind of a critical moment that changed my life. The show I was working on at the time got canceled, and everybody on the show got laid off. So I did what any 29-year-old would do. I cried and called my mom, and after she comforted me, the next thing I did was send an email to all of my contacts saying I need a job. And I got an email back that changed the course of my life forever. It was from another publicist who I had worked with booking his clients on the show I was on. And he said, I know you don't have any formal experience doing PR, but if you can help book my client on any show on CNBC, I'll pay you for it. And it wound up being rather easy for me because I had close relationships with the producers at the various hours on the network. And in addition to that, I understood how to pitch a story, what would make a good guest, what would make a good segment. And that was when I realized I had sort of my light bulb moment, and I realized that my special currency, if you will, was that I was able to take the experience I had being in a newsroom and marry that with the connections to the people in those newsrooms and to those reporters. And so it was easier for me to make inroads for other subject matter experts or thought leaders to get themselves out there in the media. And so that's kind of what I'm going to be talking to you about today, the importance of earned media and how earned media can help you build your personal brand. So some of you maybe not even sure what is earned media. So I'll break it down for you. Earned media is any type of news outlet where there is no money that's transferred. It's not an advertisement. It's not sponsored content. It's not content you have on your own website or your blog. It's content that is news-oriented in nature, that is part of a well-respected news outlet. So the journalists and their editors or their executive producers, they have complete editorial discretion over what stories they pick and who they choose to interview for those stories. So it is a way that really boosts the legitimacy and the credibility of course, the person who is doing the interview, but also of the brand or the corporation or the startup that's related to the story. A lot of people now, when they think about public relations, they think that, they think of social media or influencers or advertising, and, that's part of it. And certainly becoming a more increasingly important part of it. But the work that I do at my company, which is called Pace Public Relations, we've been in business for 11 years now. And the work that we do for our clients, the reason clients retain us is to get them featured in earned media publications, to get them featured in a way that's going to raise their overall brand awareness and also add to their credibility and legitimacy of the brand or the company that they are representing. So, advertising, you have to pay for it. So it could be a great placement, but number one, a full page ad in the New York Times is going to cost you some astronomical figure, and it runs one time in one publication, never to be seen again. Sponsored content is sort of the in-between stage where it looks like a legitimate article, but there's always, a little part that says this content has been sponsored by X, Y, or Z. And if you have a savvy reader, a savvy consumer of the news, they're going to know pretty much right away that this is a sponsored article. It still is great, and it's going to help your SEO. That's your search engine optimization. It's going to be great for your marketing materials. It's going to be great for you to put out on social or on your website. But there is nothing that can still lend the credibility and the legitimacy to you or your brand like earned media. So I'll go back to my original point and break down what earned media is. So there's 4 verticals that earned media can fall into. There's broadcast TV, there's radio and podcast, there's print, and then there's digital. So TV is obviously when you think of CNN or Good Morning America, or on the streaming side, there's Cheddar TV or CBSN or Yahoo Finance. That sort of goes in like the TV vertical. Radio and podcast, there is traditional radio, what you turn on, you listen to Z100, whatever. Mostly people think of local NPR affiliates or national NPR. And then, of course, on the podcast, or there's Sirius XM and others on the terrestrial side of things that have a multitude of channels that you can, get some earned media placements out of. Podcasts, you probably listen to many yourselves, but there's probably hundreds of thousands at this point. So a great place to try to find relevant outlets, relevant podcasts for what your subject matter expertise is in. And then there's print and digital. So print, sadly, is a bit of a dying breed. There are still, of course, a number of newspapers that are in publication and a number of magazines that are still in publication. But most of those features live online. And a lot of our clients actually see a bigger value in getting a digital placement because there's a link that lasts forever, and you can ask the journalist and the editor to hyperlink back to your website within that piece, and that's going to be great for driving traffic to your website, help with your SEO. You can optimize it so that way you can try to get more clientele, to be routed to that particular feature when they do a Google News search. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how can you go about getting earned media placements for yourself or your client or your company or your brand. Clearly, if there's a budget and, you have enough sort of juice behind what you're pitching, do a quick search and see if there's a PR agency or a freelance publicist who could take on the work for you. What I do and what publicists do truly is not rocket science, but it is time consuming. And if you don't have the connections, it can be very challenging and take a long time to build those connections. You totally can, but it just will take time and effort, and it's something you have to do really consistently. You can't just send one pitch to a reporter and expect in a week you're going to be in the New York Times. It does not work like that. So just want to sort of level set on expectations there. But here are some tips of what you can do to on your own, or if you have an intern available, it's a great idea to try to dedicate a junior member of the staff or an intern to, even if it's an hour a day or a couple of hours a week, set some time aside and really try to stick to it, to the practice of pitching yourself and the practice of finding the right reporters, and outlets that you can go to. Because as I mentioned, without doing it consistently, it's going to be really, really hard. So the first step that I would say I would offer as a piece of advice is to identify what are the trade publications within the type of, industry that you're in. I'll use public relations as an example. Our trade publications are PR News, PRSA, and a variety of other ones, including Mediaite, TV Newser, different sites like that you may be like, I don't even know what these outlets are that she's saying, but for people in PR, we know exactly what they are and we keep up on them and we read them. So if you work in healthcare, there's modern healthcare, there's Healthcare News Today. If you work in, personal finance, there's Accounting Today magazine. If you work in HR, there's HR Resources magazine. There's all different types, and what that does is, if you can get a placement in there, it really elevates your stature amongst your peers, which we have found can oftentimes lead to direct connections where perhaps another agency or similar type of company may want to partner with you, or they may want to learn more about your specific capabilities, so that way they can bring you onto a particular project. We've seen that a lot of times happen. So that's one value add. The other value add is that a trade publication is typically going to write a much longer and in-depth feature or article than, say, a more mainstream outlet like USA Today or Huffington Post or Business Insider. So you're going to get right off the bat a really nice looking piece of earned media, and that is where you can really tout the legitimacy and the credibility and the brand building that that goes along with it. So if you don't know what your trade publications are, go to Google and type in, tech trade publications, healthcare trade publications, advertising trade publications. They'll pop up. We at PR agencies invest in databases such as Cision or PR Newswire that have databases of all the different journalists at all of the different outlets and their corresponding email addresses and phone numbers. So it makes it really simple. But in this day and age, honestly, if you spend a few minutes on Google, you're going to find someone's email address, or you're going to be able to deduce what the, algorithm is, first name dot last name at nameofpublication.com. You're going to be able to figure that out. Another tip for reaching journalists that I found is to start following them on Twitter, and when relevant, send a DM, or start just sort of interacting with them in a real way on their social media. Connecting on LinkedIn is also a really good source. I have found that a lot of journalists are receptive to new connections, and when I reach out to them over LinkedIn, a lot of times a real dialogue can begin. The advice I would give to you when you're thinking about pitching these trade publications is to first read the publication. It sounds maybe really basic, but I can't stress it enough. If you don't know the manner in which articles are written, if you don't know the types of articles that are being written, if you don't know the exact specific type of content that they're writing, and you send a random pitch that's not relevant, you're not going to really have a good chance of getting covered, right? It just makes sense. But you'd be surprised how many just even industry experts in my field don't take the time, to really get to know the outlet and the journalist that they're pitching. So do your due diligence, please. Just spend a few minutes, if you can, longer than that, looking into the publication, and that's going to help you craft an email. I 100% recommend sending an email. Nobody really likes to talk on the phone or get called anymore these days. So send an email and then introduce yourself. What I would say is to say something like, "Hi, journalist. My name is Annie. I work in such and such a place, and I wanted to reach out to you because I just read your latest article on X, Y, and Z. And it really stood out to me because I see you have an interest in covering this general topic. Therefore, I wanted to introduce myself. Here's the company that I work at. Here's the really cool stuff that we're doing." Keep it short, very short. And then say if you'd like to learn more or set up a time to talk on the phone, I'd love to connect with you. The other tip when you're reaching out to a journalist is to offer yourself or your client or whoever it is within the organization as a subject matter expert in the context of a greater story. So the journalist may be writing a trends piece on something relevant to the work that you do, and you could potentially be somebody that he or she quotes within that article, and that's going to help a lot in terms of your brand building, because when clients see that, or your peers, or just other people that you can put it on social media, they're going to go, "Wow, that's really impressive, that this person was quoted within this article." So that's sort of general tips across the board, but I would recommend starting with the trade publications. The next step I would say is to think locally. So if you are based in Milwaukee, do a 10-minute Google search of what are all of the Milwaukee news outlets that you could potentially pitch yourself to. There's going to be one or more local newspapers. There's going to be one or more local magazines. There's going to be probably several news websites that are smaller in nature, but that cover the local goings on. There's going to be probably a local NPR affiliate and some other local news radio. And then there's likely going to be a lot of podcasts that are based in your specific area. What you need to do is do the research again and see the format of the show or the newspaper or the outlet. See if there's a relevant section that is, that's relevant to you and the company or the brand that you represent. Listen to a few episodes or read some articles or watch some segments, and then go online, do your research for who works there. You want to just usually pitch a reporter, an editorial producer, something along those lines. And the other thing I should say is that now with social media, it's so easy to be able to follow these journalists. And so you can get a really intimate, personalized view into their world without it being creepy, because everybody's online and, that's everyone's putting it out there. So I would really recommend taking a solid week at least just to follow these outlets, and then craft your email pitch in the same manner that I had mentioned with the trades. Put in a little personal touch. Journalists are not doing their job for money, because there's not a lot of money to be made in journalism. They're doing it because they have a real passion for it, and they want to bring compelling, interesting, unique stories to the public that are hopefully going to serve a larger purpose by spreading information, by letting them know about something cool or unique that's happening. So just kind of keep that in mind. You want to impress the reporter, but you also want to have sort of an end game for the person on the other end who's reading it or listening or watching. What's the value add for them in sort of learning about you and your company? You want to come at it from that sort of place. And then do your short outreach, introduce yourself. If there's a way for you to safely recommend or put out there a meeting for coffee or something like that, that's always a good approach. What I found is that a lot of media outlets in specific cities across the country, there is usually a local spotlight section or a hometown hero or, just a small business section that can be a really, really good place to start. Then moving on, the next sort of holy grail of earned media is national media. Clearly, this is the hardest, but it doesn't have to be if you follow some of these tips. So one way that we have been successful in getting national earned media placements for our clients is by helping them construct an op-ed. And an op-ed is an opinion piece, an editorial, where you are reacting to a news event or a big current event and having an opinion on it. Op-ed, opinion. So the first thing if you choose to go this route, is to take a very topical news event. Let's just use the coronavirus and say you are a health tech startup, or you're a medical doctor, or you run some sort of a health practice. You need to really think of what is a new, compelling, interesting angle within the greater coronavirus pandemic that you can put out there. And if nothing is popping to you immediately, that's okay. Spend some time thinking about it. Call a team meeting where you brainstorm. Pull different op-eds from different newspapers and different sites around the country and read them and get a sense for, the different types of outlets and the types of content that they're looking for. This is a great way to raise your credibility and thought leadership for yourself or your client or who you're pitching. I would also recommend then pitching yourself to national reporters, either producers on TV or print or digital reporters, as a subject matter expert. What really helps here is if you can get granular. It doesn't help to say, hi, I'm a medical doctor and I can speak to any aspect of COVID. Okay, great. But what would be better is if you say, hi, I represent a pediatric doctor who works specifically with this subset of kids who are immunocompromised. And my client can speak to, how to keep your kids even safer from this and other infections, or how can you tell the difference between COVID and RSV? Like, get really, really specific, because for something like COVID, that's what these producers are looking for. They're basically looking for ways to impart information to their viewers that they haven't maybe heard of before. I would not spend as much time pitching like a feature story on yourself or your company just yet. It's much more important to build the relationships, and then you'll be able to, down the road, hopefully get a feature that's going to, be all about your company or all about your business. So those are sort of my tips. I hope that this has been helpful, and that you've learned something from me in this global day of learning. To recap, earned media really truly is a way to not only build your overall brand awareness, but it's a way to add a lot of legitimacy and credibility to what you do. So if you can, take a crack at it. If you can, try to dedicate, even if it's an hour a week, just set some time aside. You got to do it. Do your research in terms of the outlets and the reporters. Start following them on social media. Dedicate yourself to spending 5 minutes every day to reading what that reporter has written. That's going to help you craft an idea, craft an outreach. Send a short email, start following them on social media. You're going to have to follow up. It's okay. Journalists are used to it. Just follow up, be respectful. Don't be a hound. Don't send like 10 follow-up emails. Send 1 or 2, and then wait until there's another moment in the news or in a trends context where you can do another outreach where it might really make sense for you to interact with the journalist. And then what you can also do is just take the content of sort of what you are pitching or what you would put together in an op-ed, use that for your website, for your blog section on your website. Use that in your monthly email blast that you send out to all of your contacts. Use that in a LinkedIn post, or in social media. All of these steps are ways that you're going to help to just kind of build your presence even more. And I would love to connect with each and every one of you if you have other questions about tactically how to go about this, or if you'd like to connect with us to learn more about our company. Thank you for listening in. And if you would like to connect with me, you can find us on the web. Our company is Pace Public Relations, and the website is pacepublicrelations.com, or you could reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter or Insta or Facebook. I'm on all of them. And my name is Annie Scranton. Thank you so much for joining in today.